Beyond Religion by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I am on page 127, Understanding the Causes of Affliction. Sounds pretty good, huh? I'd kind of like to know the causes of affliction. Having developed a strong resolve to tackle our destructive emotions, and trust me, by the end of this service, you will have developed that strong resolve, we can then reflect upon their causes. Where do disturbing emotions come from? Well, we may respond, they come from the world we live in and from others who do us wrong. If it weren't for other people, we would have no reason to feel aggressive, resentful, or anxious. His Holiness. This response, seeing the source of our problems in external conditions, is a natural one, especially when we are not used to paying attention to our internal mental processes. We tend to see the troublemaker as something outside of ourselves. If we reflect deeply, however, we discover that the real troublemaker is within us. Our true enemies are our own destructive tendencies. The way we react emotionally to any given situation depends to a large extent on our own outlook, our own attitude, and our own emotional habits. As part of learning to gain a measure of control over our emotions as a step toward developing a calm mind, it is important that we take a measured and, above all, realistic approach to dealing with the world and the problems we face. Take anger, for example. Is getting angry really a helpful response? If we have a hostile neighbor who constantly provokes us, does getting angry do anything to remedy the situation? What is more, if we allow anger and resentment to fester, they will gradually wear us down, affecting our moods, our sleep, our appetite. And if this happens, our hostile neighbor really would have won some kind of victory. This is the way of a foolish person. In contrast, if we can sustain some tranquility of mind, maintain our composure, carry on with our normal lives, then we will be better equipped to determine the most effective course of action for dealing with such situations. We start to see that it is a mistake to understand the causes of our disturbing emotions purely in terms of the things or the people who trigger them in us. If we step back and reflect, we find that even though our grievances may to some extent be legitimate, our feelings of irritation and frustration are actually rather unrealistic and often exaggerated beyond what the situation merits. We may also find that such disturbing emotions recur over and over, not just because of external factors, but also because they have become an emotional habit for us. We can begin to recognize that these destructive emotions feed on themselves. The more they are indulged, the stronger they become. To realistically address such self-perpetuating destructive emotions, therefore, requires us to turn our attention to our own habits of mind. Instead of looking to blame others and the world around us, we should first look within ourselves. It was kind of a long one, but I think it was worth it, don't you? I'm going to read through our affirmation once, and then I'll invite you to join me. I am one with the Infinite One. My thoughts, words, and actions are filled with its harmony, love, beauty, warmth, and order. Knowing my unity with all things, I walk in the world filled with loving compassion, and so it is. Please stand and join me with conviction. I am one with the Infinite One. My thoughts, words, and actions are filled with its harmony, love, beauty, warmth, and order. Knowing my unity with all things, I walk in the world filled with loving compassion, and so it is. Oh, thank you, beloved. That was really, I want to grow, I want to feel, I want to love. I want to grow, I want to feel, I want to love. Let's all go to brunch. We got it. Yeah? I want to grow, I want to feel, I want to love. You know, we are put here for a purpose, and sometimes we get so caught up in trying to figure out what the purpose is, we forget to live. I'm remembering this morning, I've been reflecting on this notion of whose fault is it anyway? Who can I blame for everything that's gone wrong? And I was remembering back in about 1979 or 80, I was a waitress at the Denny's restaurant down in Federal Way, back when Federal Way was Nowheresville. There was nothing there. They had just built the mall, and it was like just little one-lane roads every place, and now you go down there, it's like, whoa. But I was at the Denny's there on 320th, and I didn't like my job much. I think I was 20. I didn't like my job much, really didn't like my boss. And one day I decided to tell my boss what I thought about him. And he fired me. And I was appalled at the injustice. How dare he fire me for just saying what is? Now, let me just say, as I asked Patty to hand me my glasses, that as a 20-year-old, I didn't really have a lot of self-mastery, did I? I had not mastered myself. I had not mastered my emotions and my feelings and my reactions. I did not know who I was. And I was, I went off on my boss that day, but I went off on somebody else the day before, and I went off on somebody else the next day, right? And the fact is, my life wasn't working very well. And my life wasn't working very well because of them. Right? Because it's never me. It's always that, I'm fibbing now, right? Because what I had to do was grow into an awareness that I was the common denominator in all of these situations that seemed to go sideways. And that maybe I had some role in these, and I began to move into a practice of developing mastery over my emotions, over my feelings, over my reactions. And do I think I'm there yet? Let's see, 89, what was that, like 35 years ago or something? 40 years ago? Shh. Am I there yet? I'm better. I have begun to understand and embody more fully, a little more each day, that in order to be a source of peace in the world, I must have peace inside myself. In order to be a source of order in the world, I must be orderly in my own mind, in my own thinking, in my own expressions in the world. And so in 2019, we are talking about living in the Spirit, living in the mind and the heart of God consciously and fully, knowing the truth of who we are. And specifically in February, we're talking about living in unity, understanding our oneness and our unity with the infinite, and living from that place. That is that infinite mind that is peace, that is love, that is joy, is order, is all of that. And as I align with the love and the joy and the order that God is, I live from that place. The alignment is the tricky part. Interestingly enough, I can't just say I am order, I am peace. It's a good place to start, but by itself it's not enough, is it? I must actually be order. I must actually be peace. And so as we are talking about living in the Spirit of God, living in the Spirit of love, living in the Spirit of unity, a great place to start is with mastering ourselves. Now, what does that mean? I looked it up. The word mastery, comprehensive knowledge or skill. Comprehensive knowledge or skill, command or grasp. And of course the root word is master. And a master, the Latin root of the word master, is magnus. Think magnify, think magnum of wine. Magnus, it means large or great. That is, mastery, to be a master, is to embody my greatness and to have command of my emotions in such a way that everything I do and think and say is life-affirming and for the good of all. Now, I do want to be clear, when we're talking about self-mastery, we are not talking about self-control. I don't know about you, but I already have an interesting relationship with the tendency to control. Most of us don't need more control. In fact, control is one of the things we bump up against, and then we have these big reactions to it. So we're not talking about having more control. We're talking about knowing ourselves so deeply, so fully, that we effectively manage our reactions and our responses. We effectively manage our emotions and our reactions in a way that everything we do is life-affirming and harms no one. Now, how beautiful is that? I want more of that. Do you want more of that? I would like to I would like to know myself. I want to grow. I want to feel. I want to love. I want to know myself so fully and so deeply that I just reckon, oh, there you are. Aren't you cute? That's the part of you that told off your boss 40 years ago and got fired. Wasn't that a fun lesson? And now you don't behave that way anymore, do you? Because you are engaged in this journey towards self-mastery, and it is a journey. It's a journey with no destination. It's a process. And I like the destination. I like the idea of getting there. Do you? It's like, I want to get there. I want to unpack my bags and be comfortable. It's a lovely vision. And certainly my life has become much more manageable since 1980. And my life is much more comfortable since 1980. And yet there's always just something to push us along to the next stage of our spiritual growth and our human understanding. Now, we've talked the last 2 weeks. How many of you were in Snow Church last Sunday? How was it? It was awesome, wasn't it? For those of you who don't know, last Sunday we live streamed via Facebook our service. If you'd like to go look at it, it's on the Unity of Bellevue Facebook page, so go check that out. The last 2 Sundays here in the month of February, we've been talking about unity, and we've been talking about the fact that, the world has a lot of problems, right? How are we going to fix those problems? That's been the question we've been asking. And we've kind of wrestled a little bit with the notion of, is there anything really to be fixed, or is there something to be? To effectively manage my life's problems requires that I effectively manage me. And the world is made up of me and you and you and you and you. And the more effectively I manage me, and the more effectively you manage you, the more effectively we will collectively manage the world's problems. Because we know who we are, we know why we're here, we know there is nothing to do, but there is something to be, and our doingness is driven out of the beingness, and we know ourselves so deeply that we effectively manage not just our own reactions and emotions, but we effectively manage our collective reactions and emotions. Because, a lot of the problems that we have in the world are because we didn't look at the root, right? We just kind of slapped a solution over something, and then it caused 8 more problems, right? Or that we look at solutions that aren't really very effective, like, well, let's just go beat up the neighbors. That'll help. or whatever it might be. But if we look at the root of the problem, then we can actually come up with solutions that are effective. But we can't look at the root of the problem if we don't know ourselves, and if we can't manage our own problems. So you want to make the world a better place? Me too. It starts right here. And then we learn to work together collectively so that we can manage our collective reactions and responses. So let's talk for a moment about what are emotions. Feelings. They're biochemical. We have reactions in our body when we feel certain feelings. Things like love and joy, peace, anger, fear, jealousy, envy, greed. All of those things are emotions, aren't they? And we could make a case that some of those emotions are beneficial or life-giving, and some of them are maybe harmful. That is, they maybe undermine our well-being. I kind of like to stay away from the idea that we have positive and negative emotions, because I don't want to make any of our feelings wrong. Does that make sense? Some of our feelings might, however, undermine our well-being. And the Dalai Lama addresses this really beautifully on page 116 in the book. He says it's important not to confuse emotions which are afflictive, which means harmful, those that undermine our well-being. It's important to not confuse these emotions with those that simply don't feel good. For instance, feelings of sadness, grief, and remorse are certainly not pleasurable, but they need not in themselves be harmful. When faced, say, with the death of a loved one, feelings of grief and sorrow may actually be quite constructive. In the same way, emotions which may initially seem pleasurable can nevertheless be destructive at a deeper level by undermining our peace and stability. An example might be lust or excessive longing for a particular object. Such longing may in some sense seem pleasurable, but eventually the craving will erode our capacity for genuine contentment. And so what we're talking about is all of our emotions are okay. Some of them are more life-affirming than others. The ones that aren't so life-affirming or might undermine our experience of life are the ones that we could maybe learn a little more from so that we can shift. In other words, feeling my anger and telling my boss essentially to go to hell. Do you see, I was expressing emotions in a way that undermined my good in life because I didn't know myself well enough to manage my reactions. I could have felt anger at my boss and said, what is this here to teach me? What is mine to learn from this experience? And I guess I'm going to stay and I'm going to work here a little longer and be with the anger and see what I can learn from it. Do you see, then it becomes instructive and a gift. And I find myself growing from my feelings and learning to love more fully and bringing home a paycheck at the same time, which at that point in my life was pretty important. All right, so what we want to do is develop an awareness of our emotions and our feelings so that we can master them, so that we can know ourselves so deeply that we are masters of not just our feelings, but our thinking and our responses to our feelings, and then we become masters of our behavior and our habits. So let's talk a little bit about what does that look like? How do we engage the path of self-mastery? What are the steps, if you will, to self-mastery? How do we master the thought processes that power our beliefs, our thoughts, our habits, our tendencies? How do we become so aware that we drive them rather than they drive us? That sounds pretty good to me. I want to know how to do that. Well, I have some thoughts for you. And as we engage this, I invite you to think about it as, what is the journey to spiritual maturity? Because on some level, that's really what we're talking about here, isn't it? We're talking about not just emotional maturity, but we're talking about spiritual maturity, knowing the truth of who we are, Knowing the truth that deep inside of us is something that is peace. Knowing the truth that deep inside of us is something that is love. And as we align, we're back to the beginning, as we align more fully with that, all else is added unto us. As we seek first the kingdom of love, of joy, of peace, the rest of our life is simply done. So these steps to self-mastery or spiritual maturity, the first step is you got to practice. You got to practice being aware. Take a deep breath with me. Practice being aware. Are you kidding? I actually have to think about what I'm doing, what I'm feeling, what I'm saying, how I'm being. Yes, we must practice becoming aware of how we're feeling. You know, the Dalai Lama talks about this quite a bit in the book. He talks about, so much of this is just habit. We watched people experience their feelings this way growing up, or on TV, or wherever we saw it, and then we developed the habit of experiencing our feelings this way. I'm angry, when my mom got angry, she did it this way, so that's how I'm going to do it. And then we lay down that path in our minds, and we forget that we are beings unto ourselves, and that the greater being lives at the center of us, and is calling us forth to grow, to feel, to love. And so I can become aware. I can use my mind, use my brain to become aware. And it's a practice. Because if we've been walking around unaware, it might take us a little bit to get aware. But we get better at it. We get better and we get better and we get better at it. I saw this meme on Facebook the other day, and I won't get it exactly right, and I think it was quoting Lao Tzu, I'm not sure. It said, "Those who blame others have a long way to go. Those who blame themselves are halfway there. Those who blame no one have arrived." So the first step in becoming aware is releasing blame. That was our reading today, wasn't it? Owning our experience of life. Because you know what? If it were really the person or the thing out there, everybody in the world would have the exact same response to it. And that's just not how it works, is it? I can be in the same room with a bunch of people, and we all have the same experience, and we all respond to it differently, right? So we can respond to it consciously and with open hearts and with an awareness, oh, I'm having a reaction up here. What is that about? Or we can just go knee-jerk, which is, that's how I was raised to be. And so we release blame and take responsibility fosters practicing awareness. It fosters owning our feelings and anchoring in the awareness that I am responsible for how I experience the world. And the step this is kind of like practice awareness A is own your feelings, know that your feelings are yours, release blame, take responsibility, and practicing awareness B is then you can begin to notice your reactions. You can begin to notice your reactions. I ran across this really great practice recently, and I forget where, so I can't attribute it, but it has really been a useful practice for me. Have you ever felt angry? And then behaved badly? I have. And so this practice that I've been using is when I'm feeling angry, and I stop and I notice and I become aware that I'm feeling angry, is to declare in my mind, I am not anger, I am love. I am not anger, I am love. Now here's an important thing to notice about this practice. It doesn't say I am not angry. It doesn't deny the feeling. It denies that the feeling has control over me. I am not anger. I am love. And we know infinite mind, infinite heart of God is love, right? And we are created in its image and likeness, and so we must be what? Love. So what I'm doing is I'm taking myself out of the reactive experience and lifting my mind into the spiritual truth. I am not anger. I am love. And now do you see I can be angry in a different way? I can be angry from the heart of God because there's a lot to be angry about in the world right now. Okay? And I want to affirm, it's kind of funny, you know that little Facebook reaction thing that's anger? I've never wanted to use that because I don't want to be angry. And lately, I feel so free. I've been using it lately. Because I'm realizing there's stuff worthy of my anger happening in the world right now. And that just because I feel anger does not make me bad or wrong. It doesn't even make me anger. I'm still love. I am not anger. I am love. And so then I started practicing this. I was feeling some fear the other day, and I thought, well, wait a minute. You know, I'm not fear. I am power. I am the God quality power. It doesn't mean I wasn't fearful. I still felt kind of afraid, but you see, anchoring in God quality power gave me the courage to move ahead and do the right thing anyway. And so I was thinking about, what if I were feeling doubtful? I am not doubt, I am faith. What if I were feeling envious? I am not envy. Whatever it might be for you, I am love. I am abundance. Whatever it might be. And so we cultivate this practice of noticing our reactions and then managing the inner dialogue. Because I don't know about you, a lot of times when I'm angry, I can't believe she did that. That's my inner dialogue, right? But if I stop and I notice my reactions and I manage the inner dialogue, I am not angry. I am not anger. I am love. Then I can be angry from a loving place. And it changes our whole experience of the world. So our first step to self-mastery lies in practicing awareness, owning our feelings, releasing blame, noticing our reactions, and managing the dialogue we're having about the reactions. Aligning with the spiritual truth of the life of the infinite living one that beats our hearts and breathes us. And even when I don't know how to be, it knows how to be. For it is infinite wisdom and infinite knowledge, which leads us right into step 2 for developing spiritual mastery. When we're managing our reactions better, now we can apply discernment. And what is discernment? I think of discernment as the practical application of wisdom. You know, wisdom is kind of this airy thing that's up there. Discernment is something I practice, I apply here in the realm of form. It is how I cultivate being more godlike, being wiser in the world is by applying discernment. And here's the problem with these overly strong kind of life-undermining emotions. They mess with our discernment. Have you ever been mad at somebody and suddenly they are the worst person in the world? Or have you ever been afraid of something and suddenly it's the most fearful thing ever? We begin to misjudge out of our emotions what's actually happening. We begin to misjudge other people or the situation or even, unfortunately, the consequences of our actions. Because a lot of times when we get really big in our feelings, we do things that we're going to later regret, right? Because we've misjudged the consequences of our actions. So what happens is when we're in this kind of feeling overload, if we are not practicing step 1, which is practicing awareness, we forget to be discerning. Patty and I had a fight a while back now, and it wasn't a big fight. It was just kind of like one of those minor skirmishes that you have in your marriage, right? And as I was leaving then, I was shutting the door and the wind caught it and slammed it. And I was like, oh my God, now she's going to think I'm so mad I slammed the door. Right? Do you know what I mean? And I thought of that this morning as an example because I definitely, after that little skirmish, I probably would have thought, well, now she slammed the door, right? And make up a story about it and be reactive about it. I lost my discernment for a moment. I could have just thought, wow, did she slam the door or did the wind catch it? Or did something else happen? Do you see? And so, although in that case, I'm telling you, I was the one who slammed the door. It was the wind. It wasn't me, honey, honest. And I had to go back and say something. Hey, I was like, I didn't slam the door because I'm mad, right? You know what I mean? And so you go back and you fix it right away, right? So applying discernment, applying wisdom in real-world situations, walking the God quality of wisdom, embodying the infinite God presence of wisdom, so that we don't lose our capacity for discernment because we're being driven by our feelings. This is step 2. Good so far? What's step 1? Practice awareness. Step 2, apply discernment. And then step 3, we're aware, we're thinking about it, we're managing the internal dialogue, we're applying wisdom, we're applying discernment, behaving a little better perhaps in the world, and now we must engage with right action. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm the one who a lot of times wants to do right action first. Let's solve this problem. I'm mad about this, or I'm afraid about this, or let's solve this problem. But you know what? That's not the first step, is it? I like to take action. I'm pretty good at taking action. But it's putting a Band-Aid on the problem, right? We have to get to the root of it by practicing the first 2 steps, and then we simply listen. Because that inner wisdom that is the infinite wisdom knows what to do right now. And this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about self-mastery is not about control. Getting something done, solving a problem is about control. It's about releasing into the solution that already is. Do you think there is not a solution already for the source of your angst or your fear or your anger or whatever? The mind and the heart of God is like at work on this. There is nothing outside of the perfection and the wholeness and the divine order of the universal presence. And we're not creating solutions. We are opening to allow the solution to flow as us. Because divine order is the nature of the universe. And as we surrender more fully, become more conscious, move into self-mastery, know the truth of who we are, and live from that place, right action simply makes itself known. And then we got to commit to it. And here's the funny thing about commitment. We got to be 100% committed and 100% flexible at the same time. 100% committed and 100% flexible at the same time. I was thinking about, I kind of got to think that the universal energy that moved upon the face of the deep and said, let there be light, and said, let there be this, that, and the other thing that now looks like planet Earth and galaxies and solar systems and the great raisin bread of the heavens, right? That's from 2 weeks ago. That something was very committed, right? And very flexible at the same time. Because all that has ever unfolded has been an evolution in consciousness, the infinite consciousness of God evolving in form. And evolution by its very nature has to be open-ended. That's what it is. There's always something greater to be, and we can't imagine what it is yet. So we are 100% committed to evolving, and we are 100% flexible about what it looks like. Take a breath with me on that one. But as we develop self-mastery, we begin to recognize and engage with right action. And from there we plan and we execute and we do, absolutely. But we do it with a sense of just open-hearted, easy flexibility, steering our minds ever toward a greater idea of wisdom and love and grace and power, knowing that everything unfolds exactly as it should for our highest good, and healing and learning and opening and evolving and learning to manage our feelings and emotions more powerfully all the time, because the greatest spiritual wisdom I've ever seen is on my conditioner bottle. Rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat. Shampoo bottle. Right? You do it. See what you found out. You rinse, you repeat. You do it. See what you found out. You rinse, you repeat. Self-mastery, the journey to spiritual maturity, the spiritual journey, the conscious path that we are called to in this human incarnation is a process. Are you willing to be part of the process? And simply say yes. Develop your self-awareness. Notice your reactions. Manage your dialogue. Practice discernment. And move into a willingness to allow right action to be you. Let's turn within and see if we can't engage that process right here and right now. So I invite you to take the sacred breath with me. And to relax even more into your chair. Feel your shoulders drop, your jaw soften, as you simply surrender in this moment to that greater mind, that greater heart of God as you. And as you relax even more fully into the awareness of the presence, your mind eases, your heart opens. And in this state of awareness, I just invite you to bring to mind a place in which your life could use a little self-mastery. A place in your life where you could know yourself more deeply. A place perhaps where there's strife or conflict, where there are feelings that undermine your well-being. And breathing deeply. Just allow yourself to move into a state of greater awareness. About this situation, this condition. Allow yourself to open your heart more fully, to ease and soothe your mind, and to begin more than you ever have before to owning your feelings. Own your feelings. These are my feelings. And you take responsibility for your feelings right here and right now. And if it feels a little difficult, just simply be willing, be open to the possibility that taking responsibility for your feelings might be a healing practice. And can now take an opportunity to notice your reactions to these feelings and to manage your inner dialogue about yourself, about the feelings, and to affirm, I am love. I am power. I am grace. I am wisdom. I am harmony, joy, peace. And begin to recognize that from this consciousness of God, your feelings cannot hurt you. It is safe to feel them. And you simply allow yourself to become aware of what it is you must be, what it is that is yours to learn, how it is you may move from allowing these feelings to undermine your well-being to lift you to a higher state of consciousness, a higher state of awareness. Apply wisdom. To this situation, this condition. And begin to see yourself engaging in right action. What is yours to do? Such that there is a healing for yourself, there is a healing for those around you. That indeed some degree of mastery is yours this day. That indeed you are in charge of your life. Even as you surrender to the greater something from which all things flow, you simply allow the beingness of God to be right where you are. And so it's with a grateful heart that I simply declare we are transformed, that we leave this place living more fully in unity, living more fully in the spirit of all life. I give thanks that God is good and all is well. And I close this message. And so it is. Amen.